Hey everyone, this is the Mana Source. My name is Wedge. I promise we'll return to our regularly scheduled content. Eventually. But today we have more spoilers and they're huge. The first spoiler we're going to talk about was spoiled via the MTG official site in Japan. Perforos' Emissary is a 3 colorless 1 red 3/3 with a bestow cost of 7. He can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures, and enchanted creature gets +3/+3 and can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. Pretty good limited card, probably won't see a ton of constructed play, however, there is a ton of talk about his creature type, Ox. Many people expect the Messengers of the Gods to be elementals, but the Emissary flies in the face of all of our hopes and dreams. Oxen can be cool. Maybe. But Oxen aside, the reason you're all probably here is to see this guy, Xenagos the Reveler. 2 colorless, 1 red and 1 green for a 3 loyalty satyr planeswalker. You can +1 him to add X mana in any combination of red and green to your mana pool, where X is the number of creatures you control. Remember when we talked about how Theros would do something to make monstrosity and bestow cost realistic to reach? This is one of those somethings. Even if this guy drops his latest turn 4, in a red-green deck you should already have 3 creatures, and until you get Supreme Verdicted, it should just go nuts from there. His second ability is a 0 ability much like Garruk Relentless. He puts a 2/2 red and green satyr token with haste into play. Pretty good for a creature generation machine, haste puts a lot of pressure on opposing planeswalkers and players alike. His ultimate is a -6. You exile the top 7 cards of your library and then put any number of creature and land cards from among them onto the battlefield. This is kinda dirty. It only takes 3 turns to get Xenagos to critical, and when you do, in a red-green deck, there really aren't any non-creature, non-land cards, except for a few combat tricks, Burning Earth, and a couple planeswalkers. This guy seems really strong coming into the current meta. Considering red-green is a top-tier deck already as we approach rotation, this plus Domri Raid is just sickening. Both of them together give you mana acceleration, creature generation, and massive creature card advantage. That's literally everything red-green needs. I can't see how red-green or even Naya aggro won't be a gigantic problem right after rotation. These two walkers are just insane together. If you're wondering why we got 2 red-green walkers in the same colors so close to each other, Mark Rosewater had this to offer. Planeswalkers are not chosen based on their color, but rather their color is chosen based on the planeswalker. We don't say, we need a green-white planeswalker, we say, what color is this planeswalker from the story? I'll be the first to say that I absolutely love lore. It's one of my favorite parts of the game, especially recently. However, there is a point where you have to balance lore, flavor, and the game itself. We saw from Ravnica that people are pretty opinionated about their favorite color combinations, and not gonna lie, Gruul players are sitting pretty right now, while plenty of others are underwhelmed. Granted, you can't please everyone, and I get that. One thing to think about though is if the balance of power isn't shifted pretty heavily in the rest of the spoilers, it looks like playing red-green is a no-brainer. There is a lot of the set left to spoil, so I'm pretty confident the other colors will be given their own proper support. I believe in you, R&D department. Thassa was officially spoiled this morning. Finally. For a ridiculous 3 mana, you get the 5/5 indestructible devotion-based creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, she lets you scry 1. This is just great! There isn't much more I can say about that. Being able to sift through your cards every single turn, essentially for free, after the turn you play her, is just value. You're potentially seeing double the cards as each turn goes by. With her in play and some cantrips, I can't see how you won't get the cards you need. You can also pay 2 mana and target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. This ability is fantastic in Limited, Constructed, and even EDH. If control decks had this with Geist of Saintcraft, what a world it would have been. Having Unblockable available to you in a color that excels at effects based on dealing damage to an opponent is really flavorful for the color and very useful. Thassa will definitely see constructed play. At least from me, she will. Everyone loves dragons, right? Here is our Mythic Stormbreath Dragon. 3 colorless and 2 red for a 4/4 with flying, haste, and protection from white. You can make him monstrous for 7 mana, and then he becomes a 7/7 and deals damage to each opponent equal to the number of cards in their hand. Most Mythic dragons printed are for collectors and EDH players with a few exceptions, but Stormbreath could actually see constructed play. Protection from white is pretty relevant. Looking at you, Chained to the Rocks. Haste is a great mechanic, especially in red. Plus, with all the mana ramping effects so far, getting to Monstrous doesn't seem all that difficult in a red-green deck with this as the top of the curve. The last cards spoiled are the cycle of common nymphs. We have already seen Cavern Lampid, but each color has their own with pretty cool artwork. Observant Alseed is a 3 mana for a 2/2 with Vigilance and Bestow for 5 mana. Nimbus Naiad is also 3 mana for a 2/2 with a 5 mana Bestow ability, but it has and grants flying instead. Spearpoint Oread is 3 mana as well, but the Bestow cost on this one is 6 mana, and she grants First Strike as her ability. Finally, Leafcrown Dryad is only 2 mana with Reach and Bestow for 4 mana. Remember, each Bestow creature we've seen is written to grant its own power, toughness, and abilities as bonuses to the enchanted creature when bestowed. I went through these pretty fast because all of them are relatively straightforward. Flying is a great evasion mechanic, so my instinct is to go with the Nimbus as the best, but Leafcrown is really cheap. Reach isn't a terrible ability to have on a creature anyways, and 4 mana that lands you a good creature enchantment and then a creature itself seems pretty cheap and brings good value. Particularly in Limited, where flying tends to run rampant, the Dryad gives you 2 anti-flying blockers. These are going to see play in every Limited deck regardless of what colors you are playing. Bestow is really strong and I think everyone knows it. Once again, Theros doesn't disappoint with a nice combination of flavor and power. As always, subscribe below for the most up-to-date and reliable spoiler information you could ever need. This is the Mana Source, I'm Wedge, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.